You've felt it before, that strange, unsettling feeling after a conversation where nothing was technically said wrong, but somehow you left feeling confused, smaller, or like you were the problem. That's not an accident. That's a mind game. And today, we're going to go deep into the psychology of the people who play them, not to judge them, but to truly understand what's happening beneath the surface. Because understanding is the beginning of freedom. Mind games are not random cruelty. They are a language, a coded, distorted language that someone learned long before they ever met you. Psychologists describe mind games as a form of psychological manipulation, where a person indirectly controls, destabilizes, or gains power over another person's emotions and perception of reality. The tools are familiar: the silent treatment, hot and cold behavior, gaslighting, subtle guilt trips, passive aggression, and the slow withdrawal of warmth. But here's what most people miss. The person playing these games is rarely in full conscious control of what they're doing. For many of them, this is simply how they learn to survive. To understand why someone plays mind games, you have to go back, far back. John Bowlby's attachment theory tells us that the patterns we form in childhood, the way we learn to get love, attention, and safety, follow us into adulthood like invisible blueprints. A child who grew up in an unpredictable home where love was conditional or inconsistent learned that direct communication is dangerous. Asking for what you need directly leads to rejection, humiliation, or abandonment. So instead, they learn to manipulate the environment, to test, to push and pull, to create emotional uncertainty in others, because that felt more familiar and more controllable than the terrifying vulnerability of being honest. Carl Jung would call this the shadow at work. The parts of the self that were rejected, shamed, or suppressed, they don't disappear. They go underground, and from that underground place, they influence behavior in ways the person may not even fully recognize in themselves. Now think about what this looks like in real life. There's the partner who pulls away every time things feel too close, not because they stopped caring, but because closeness itself feels like a threat to them. So they create distance through coldness, through picking a fight out of nowhere, through suddenly becoming unavailable. They're not trying to hurt you. They're regulating their own nervous system in the only way they know how. There's the friend who constantly makes you feel like you're never doing enough, subtly shifting the goalposts, offering backhanded compliments, making you doubt your own judgment. Inside them, there is often a deep wound of feeling inadequate, and by keeping others slightly off balance, they feel a fleeting sense of control over a world that once made them feel powerless. There's the colleague who never confronts anything directly, but you always feel the tension. They smile to your face and undermine you in the background. They learned, somewhere along the way, that direct conflict was punished. So they went underground with their anger too. Aaron Beck, the father of cognitive behavioral therapy, showed us how distorted thinking patterns, what he called cognitive distortions, shape the way people interpret relationships. People who play mind games often operate through distortions like black and white thinking, catastrophizing, and a deep mistrust of others' intentions. They expect to be betrayed. They expect to be abandoned. So they strike first, emotionally, before it can happen. And Leon Festinger's concept of cognitive dissonance explains something important here too. When the mind holds two conflicting truths, I need love, and love is dangerous, it creates a kind of psychological tension that has to be resolved somehow. For many people, controlling the emotional dynamic of a relationship is how they relieve that tension. But what does this cost them? Quite a lot, actually. People who live inside this pattern are rarely at peace. Beneath the control, beneath the games, there is an exhaustion that runs very deep. The constant vigilance, the inability to trust, the loneliness that comes from never letting anyone truly see them. Neuroscientist Dan Siegel talks about how unprocessed emotional experiences keep the nervous system in a state of chronic dysregulation. And that state, that low hum of anxiety and defensiveness, becomes the lens through which they experience everything. They are not winning, they are surviving. And survival mode looks like a lot of different things. Sometimes it looks like manipulation. So what do you do with this understanding? First, let it soften something in you, not to excuse behavior that has hurt you. Your pain is real. What was done to you was not okay. But recognizing the wound behind the weapon allows you to stop taking it so personally. It was never really about you. It was about the story they were already living before you arrived. Carl Rogers, one of the great humanistic psychologists, believed that genuine change begins in an atmosphere of empathy, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. If you've been on the receiving end of mind games, part of your healing is recognizing how it may have distorted your own self-perception. You are not as confused, as sensitive, or as too much as they made you feel. And if you see yourself in any of this, if some part of today's video is describing patterns you recognize in your own behavior, that recognition itself is profound. You cannot heal what you cannot see. The people who play mind games are not fundamentally different from the rest of us. They are people in pain, operating from fear, using the tools they were given in a world that didn't always teach healthy ones. But awareness is where it ends. When you can name the pattern, in yourself or in someone else, it begins to lose its power. You stop reacting from instinct and start responding from understanding. That's not a small thing. That is freedom. If this video connected with you, comment which part felt most true. And if you enjoyed deep psychology content like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos about human behavior, emotions, relationships, self-awareness, and the hidden patterns of the mind. See you in the next one.